Turn your radio up and listen. It's time for City Life. Here's Rob McGowan.
So how are you anyway?
Not bad. How's Rob?
Oh, it's grand. Busy, tired always.
Yeah. I see you had an adventure. You had a little adventure there this week.
Oh yeah. I went down down to PEI, do some kayaking and stuff like that, little fishing.
Okay. Very good. That sounds like
some
fun.
sunrises, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Something different.
Good for you. Yeah, good for you.
Yeah. So for everybody who doesn't know, this is Ryan Summers, and you've been on council quite a while. So what are you thinking of the whole experience of it? What's it taught you about how the city works?
Sure. Yeah. Well, I guess, I'm starting my second term, which is exciting. And so far, it's been a great experience, Rob. It's like anything in life. Most of the time, I absolutely enjoy it. And there's times where it's difficult as well. But I think anybody that's ever served in any type of political role knows that when you're getting into it, it's not always going to be roses. So, but overall, like I say, I enjoy the experience. I enjoy doing it and feeling as though you're trying to contribute to your city as best you can. I guess that's what it's all about at the end of the day.
So do you find it, when you go from one set of councils, I guess over the years, you all get to be friends and working on things together, and then you switch and some have to leave and some different ones. How do you find the transition?
Sure. Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, I think, for Councilor DePlacy and Councilor Ross Robinson and I, this is a new experience for us because this is our second term. I mean, former Deputy Mayor King, he's been around quite a few times. So the transition thing would be a little, easier for him. So for myself, so far, I think it's been good. We lost some great councilors through the last election. But we also gained some new blood, I guess you would call it. And so far, the transition seems to be going quite well. And I'm excited with where this group is headed. We're still sort of in the feeling out process, I would say. We've had quite a few orientation sessions for the new members for the most part. Of course, one of them has been there before with Councilor Harris. But anyways, so far, I would say, things are looking good. And I'm pleased with, we seem to be meshing well, I guess is what I'm getting at. And I think that bodes well for the next 4 years of our term.
Well, that's always good. So you guys feel like you're on the same page going forward, trying to come up with the same ideas and working together. I guess that'd be the main thing. If you're combating against each other, it makes it harder. So do you have ideas of what the council is really agreeing on, some of the main ideas going forward, what you'd like to see?
Yeah, certainly. And I think you made a good point there. I've said it a number of times before. I think what, hurt this city for quite some time where, it's not knocking anyone individually, but for quite some time when we became a city, the councils sort of spent more time, battling amongst each other instead of trying to work together to get things accomplished. And I think that left us sort of stagnant. There wasn't a ton of progress. And again, I think over the last number of councils that has slowly changed. And to your point, it's important to try and work together if we want to get anything accomplished. So again, I was proud to be a part of that last group, our last council. I think we really had that going well. And it looks like we're on the right track with this group also. You're not always going to see eye to eye on everything. I mean, that's just life and that's fine. I mean, that's all part of it as well. But I guess if you were to ask me, in terms of our priorities, we have a number of them. And I'm probably going to be repeating some of the things that you've talked to other members of council about so far, but
well, that's all right. Gives us all an idea of how each person thinks individually and how council works together on them.
Yeah, by all means. And I mean, I guess the big question in my head, a lot of what we're looking to try and accomplish, of course, is funding related, through the other levels of government. Obviously, it's no secret that the multiplex is a big project for all of us on council that, we're hoping to make some traction on that here in the coming months ahead. Of course, we all know there's a federal election on tap here pretty soon as well.
So have we been tapping into that federal election stuff going on, sort of bringing them in, sort of making them accountable before the election?
Well, I think it's fair to say that we'd like to know from the candidates, where they stand on the same issues that we're trying to accomplish. If they're elected, we would be there to go to bat for us. That's common sense, I think. But I wouldn't leave it simply at the multiplex. I mean, we have a number of things that we're looking to accomplish. Of course, the Centennial Bridge that I can see out my window here at the office, that's a big issue that we're talking about a lot lately, with the pending closures. And of course, there was a little bit of talk about, potentially not having a sidewalk on the, once that work is complete. That's ludicrous in my mind. I mean, we have to have that. And I think I'm not worried about that, because I think, again, common sense will take over at some point. And whenever that's done.
I got some, Michelle Conroy sent me a video of the speaking in the House that they pretty much guaranteed that they were going to have the sidewalk on there. So
no, well, that's great. I'm glad to hear that as well. I'm not sure if I saw that video as well, Rob, but I appreciate you pointing it out. So I mean, those are two big items. And then lately, there's a lot of history behind it, but the Northern Bypass is definitely coming back on the radar in a big way. There's certainly still a need for that. There's no question. And I guess the hard part for us when you're in the council role, again, as I said there a little while ago, everything that we're looking to do, and of course, we talked a lot about active transportation plans as well, but anytime you're looking to do anything within the city, it costs money. And, you try to get as much possible as you can out of the province and out of the feds as well. And I guess the hard part for us becomes prioritizing what we want to try and accomplish first. And I guess naturally, I only end up mentioning multiplex first, not to slight the importance of any other projects, but I like to stay consistent. And from day one, since I've been on council, or even when I was campaigning for council, that was kind of at the top of the list for myself personally, and probably for the previous group. So I don't really want to stray from that. But again, these are all sort of conversations that will be had amongst the entire group, if and when, hopefully, that we start getting a little more assistance from both sides of the other governments as well.
So I just want to get it straight from everybody. My understanding is that we have our side of it from the city. You guys are willing to go in, and the federal part willing to go in. It's the provincial part that is sort of up in the air. We're trying to figure out.
Seemingly, yeah, that seemingly has been a bit of a roadblock for us. But again, I think similar to what we said about working together as council, I don't like to point fingers at any one particular person or group or political party of that nature. I just hope that, when we get through this next federal election, as you sort of alluded to, I'd like to see if we can get everybody on board. I think, again, I know Deputy Mayor Quinn and Mayor Lorden met with the Premier and MLA Jake Stewart here recently as well. So it's good that, I was happy to see that the Premier was here in town. It's a small step, but, if you're pushing something as hard as we've been pushing that project, it might seem like a small step, but it's important for him to actually get here and see what it is that we're looking to try and accomplish and where it would be located and all of those things. So I was encouraged to see that meeting, that took place. I haven't heard a whole lot of the details about how those conversations went. But again, I think, the more we have those particular folks on board, the better, for our chances. And hopefully, like I say, it's been that one hasn't been talked about as long as the Northern Bypass, but it's been talked about for long enough now. So I guess I want to stop talking, which isn't hard for, which isn't easy for me to do, I should say.
The Northern Bypass, they seem to, some of them have said there's studies saying that, during the bridge closures, of course we need it, but they're saying after the bridge closures that the studies are showing that we don't really need it. And then other people are saying if we want to grow our city, of course we need it. So what is it a real divide on council about whether we need it or not? Or is it, what is the main idea of putting it in or not putting it in?
I don't think so. And that's a good analogy that you made there too, because to me, the same argument sort of falls under the multiplex too, right? There's still members in our community that don't really feel like we need that as well. But what you just said there to me kind of nailed it. We want the city to grow in all facets, right? So even if the Northern Bypass is a short-term solution for the, pending bridge closures, eventually I don't believe that once the bridge closure, scenario is finished, that we don't need a Northern Bypass anymore, because it's a way to allow the city to continue to grow. So again, I guess, not to beat a dead horse, but that's where it becomes difficult in terms of prioritizing, if we got X amount of dollars to work with, what do we go with first? And again, I think there's valid arguments on both sides of that coin, Rob. I mean, we could play that one around all day.
Sure.
I know, and we've talked too about revising the plans for the multiplex, which is probably the right thing to do. Clearly, the big price tag we had in the initial project wasn't happening. So perhaps we have to be a little more realistic. I say that with some hesitation in my voice, only because my biggest fear, I just don't want to see us settle. If we're going to take on a project of that magnitude, I'd like to see it be done right the first time and not be kicking ourselves that we, again, sort of settled for what we could get and then realize 10 to 20 years down the road that, we should have went further with it. But again, I guess we're only a few months into our new council and we've got a whole lot on our plate, to be honest.
That's true. Well, I remember years ago when they were building the big curling rink, and it was supposed to bring in a whole bunch of tournaments and all the big stuff. And I'm sure we're kind of out still on the success of whether that was quite what we thought in the beginning. So I guess plans change as we go through it over the years.
Yeah, that's fair. I know some people have had some of those types of comments about that facility. And I'm not an avid curler by no means, but I am a fan of the sport. And I have seen the potential in that building. They have had, prior to this whole COVID thing that we've been going through, they actually did have a couple of high-end tournaments where they were bringing in, teams from all across the country. It's a beautiful facility and it's well equipped for that type of an event. So even though it's, had its ups and downs, I don't feel as though that facility is a, complete failure in my eyes. If anything, I think it still holds potential, again, once we get back to a normal world, whenever that is, hopefully soon. I think whether it's on the curling side of things, I mean, that facility has been used a lot for, hosting various events too. And I mean, its location where it is down by French Fort Cove is perfect. So I still think there's a lot of value within that complex, whether it's, solely provided towards curling or other types of events. I think it's an asset to the city still at this point.
Sure. Well, on a good point, I was talking with Mayor Adam Lorden last week, and it seems like our trail system that everybody seems to want and has been talking about seems to be really going on the front burner and working out well. Yeah. And you've got some of the stuff in already. So how do you feel about that?
Yeah, well, he's bang on. I mean, I'm excited about it as well. I commented at our public meeting where we saw the draft presentation. It was presented by a girl named Jennifer Allen, one of the consultants that we brought in to work on that project. And I was thoroughly impressed with her presentation. It was quite lengthy, admittedly. It's not easy to get up and do an hour-long presentation. But what struck me about her presentation was she literally got up there with no notes. And seemingly, in my mind, nailed it. And she knew every corner of this city as if she lived here her entire life. So I was really pleased, not only with what I saw within the paper copy of her draft presentation, but just her knowledge of our city and the things that we're striving for and the things that we want to see happen. So I made sure to comment on that, when we had a chance to ask questions to her afterwards. Wasn't so much a question, but just a thank you that this is sort of the first big step. And, it was exciting to see some of the projections of what we could eventually do someday. That, is a large, 10-year type of project. And I don't say 10 years as though we're going to delay it or anything like that. But what I'm getting at is there's so much within that plan that realistically, it's going to be one of those things we're going to have to start at it and do as much of it at a time as we can. And
well, it's my understanding is you guys are going to go sort of the bridge to bridge to start.
Yeah, maybe. I know she had that within her presentation about sort of starting in the center and working your way out. I don't know if it'll necessarily play out that way. I guess we'll see as things move along. Because she had ideas and things within her plan through all corners of the city. And I know what she was getting at, that you can sort of makes sense, branch yourself out around, starting the heart of the city, I guess you would call it, and work your way out. But in my mind, if parts of the plan, say on the other ends in the Logievilles or Nelsons or, in the outlying areas of the city, if they can be accomplished, faster, perhaps, I guess in my mind, there's a lot within that plan, and we're going to piecemeal it together one bit at a time. How that'll play out, sequence wise, I'm not 100% sure just yet. But regardless, it's something that also, again, I think we already mentioned it throughout our previous campaign. That was definitely one of the biggest topics that everyone wanted to talk to the candidates about. So it's been on all of our radars for sure. And I'm definitely supportive of it. I mean, I'm a sports guy and definitely an active individual. So it's something that's at the top of my agenda. And, I hope that we're able to progress through it as quickly as possible. But I guess I'm hoping that people will be patient with it too, because it's a big project. And of course, with big projects, like we've already talked about, big money's involved with all of these things. I'd like to look out my window here now and see a bike trail all the way around Miramichi, tomorrow, Rob. But it's going to take some time. But I think Patty Quinn mentioned the other day that the wheels are in motion, which was a pretty cheesy pun, but
well, as long
accurate all at the same time.
I'll be happy when we start seeing, the first sidewalk go down. Something.
Yeah,
a little one piece. We're on the way. We're starting.
That's right, and I appreciate you saying that. That's true.
Yeah, because it's like everything. And at Sam, I was talking with Sam there a couple of weeks ago, and he had some good ideas about how we need more sports and things around the city, and courts and basketball courts and stuff. And somehow maybe that could be incorporated into these trails and how we're working along, so people can use our city in a way that's sort of encompassing, where we can be together, which is
that absolutely. And I didn't catch your interview with Sam just yet, but he might have been alluding to, I know there's a desire, like even for the tennis courts, to have lights in the evening for people that enjoy that activity. I will be honest, we've put a lot into parks and some courts in various areas of the city since I've been on council as well. But he's right. I mean, we are certainly, that's, athletics, I guess I'll call it, is a big part of our city. And there's a desire for that in a number of different, recreation areas. So I think Sam, if he was talking about that, is bang on that, the more of that we can provide to our city, whether it's for youth or, seniors as well. Those are the types of things that are a benefit to really our entire city. So to have a focus on that makes 100% sense to me, for sure.
Awesome. So anything that you've put into council or you're looking at for council that's not working out quite the way you'd like to see, or that you're struggling with, that you'd like to see more people working on?
I don't know. Like say that as far as starting out fresh with this new group, I think a few have probably talked to you. We sort of have changed our processes, I guess you can call it, with our new committee structures and whatnot. That's been difficult or challenging, I would say, because we had an extra year on council as well, and I had gotten in on a by-election. But, when you spend 4.5 years adjusting to becoming a councillor in the first place and always doing things a very, structured certain way, and then you get reelected to a new council and we basically shuffled the deck completely, that's taken some time to adjust to. So I'll be honest, Rob, I'm still getting my head around that somewhat, as far as how we set up our meetings and our agendas and how things are going to get done. I'm happy with, the way we're doing things, because the idea generally is to try and move things along a little bit quicker and not get stalled by the process. But again, it's been an adjustment, interestingly enough, for the four of us that are returning, of course. And then I guess it's not an adjustment for the four new ones, because they're kind of new, I guess. But so we're still sorting our way through that. But as far as anything that, I don't think I could pinpoint something that's not going well, or something that's bothering me in terms of that. We're closing in here pretty soon on budget season. So I think that's when things will really start to get a little more, as far as learning the dynamics of your new group. Whenever you get into talking about the budget and what we're going to, prioritize, spending the taxpayers' dollars on, that's where the conversations get a little more.
So there's no hint as to what any certain way you guys think you might go, or getting a feeling for it yet? Which projects of these ones we talked about that maybe are going to be prioritized?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I would give you a hint if I could, Rob. I guess I can't really predict what's going on inside the heads of my other seven counselors, right? I mean, what I'm thinking about, are they thinking about the same things? I'm not sure. You mentioned earlier, I mean, in terms of the multiplex, we've already done all of our homework on that, and we've done a great job on setting aside our share, so to speak. So I don't really think that's something in terms of this year's, but like we've already done the legwork on that. And if and when we get the funding from the other levels, like we're ready to go, as I think you said early in this interview as well. But so, you know, what becomes the next big priority? Obviously, like I say, we've got a huge active transportation plan sitting here on my desk. So I'm sure there'll be talks of that, you know, what type of money can we put into various components of that early on? And again, will we go down the Northern Bypass Trail? Perhaps, like I say, that's where, and we're starting that process earlier this year as well. Normally that would be coming later in the calendar year, but it's going to be starting here soon. And I don't know, like say, if I have, I guess, you know, I don't mean to be too vague on you, but in my mind, we have a lot of things on the go. So it'll take a lot more meetings and conversations with the others to sort of prioritize what's realistically most important for the city right now. And
So once you
we'll
guys,
go from there.
once you go and you do your budget, I guess that you'll probably have to set more priorities then, right? I guess that's what we'll know from the
exactly.
budget what we're going to go forward on.
Yeah. Well, that's generally how it works, right? We all will have, you know, I've been through it enough times now to know that everyone will have their priorities or little projects and things that they would like to see happen. And sometimes you get, I think Councillor DePlacy sometimes calls it the pet projects, if it's really near and dear to you as an individual. Sometimes you get your projects through the budget and those things happen, and sometimes you don't. And I mean, I can speak to that in the sense that I think it's well known that I pushed real hard to get the ball field in Beaverbrook Road at Cardinal Park decommissioned so that they could bring that team out to town within the city. And that took 3 years to get through. You know, the first couple of years, it didn't make the cut, so to speak. And I've teased a few people that I said I just wouldn't stop talking about it. And eventually in year number 3, it got pushed through. And I only mentioned that, Rob, because it's gone very well. This is the first year that they've actually been able to play in that field. Because of course, last year season was canceled due to COVID. And there've been great crowds coming to those games. In fact, they're starting a series this evening with the Chatham Head Tigers, which is great for the river in terms of baseball fans, because there will be games over in Chatham Head starting this evening, game 1 of a best of 5, and then the series, will shift back over here to this side of the river for game 2, and so on and so forth. And both of those teams have great fan bases. So I love the rivalry aspect of all of that. Our city in terms of sports has always been built on rivalries. So it's kind of fun, you know, to have the Chatham Head Tiger fans come over to Newcastle and the Miramichi Cardinal fans go over to Chatham Head and vice versa. It's going to make for a great atmosphere and a great series. There's your sports update on the side, I guess.
There we go. We got an update there. We got some news for today as well. So I was thinking about something we were talking about earlier. You were saying the meeting there with Jake Stewart and the premier and how we're working together with the different levels of government. So what are you guys doing like to build relationships like that and to take advantage of people that know people so that we can, you know, to get this funding in? How do you work on building those relationships?
Yeah, well, again, I've been through a few of those as well. I think our next hope is to have meetings with the candidates coming up in this next federal election. That can be challenging by times because, of course, they've all got very busy schedules as well. But we are going to be, I know the mayor mentioned it at our last meeting, we're going to be reaching out to the candidates to try and get a meeting, you know, even if it's an hour. Or, you know, sometimes if you can't get an actual sit down in-person meeting, we'll be exchanging, you know, emails with the candidates to try and get an idea of where their heads are at for essentially the types of projects you and I just discussed there earlier. You know, if you're elected, what's your stance on this, that, and the next thing? I think those types of meetings are important because none of us can predict how that election will actually play out. But we want to make sure that, you know, I've learned that you want to make sure that you're working well with whoever is victorious come election day. And, you know, if you work well with them, hopefully once they're elected, they'll work well with us. But, we'll see how that plays out. I mean, it's
well, I have all of them in this week.
About a month away. We'll know.
I'm going to be
If that's
talking to
it.
all of them. So we'll have them all on right on
There you
record
go.
as to where they
All right.
stand on all this stuff. So that'll be good.
Perfect.
And,
I'll be sure to
yeah.
watch those.
I'm looking forward to that because I'm curious myself. We need better relationships, and you guys seem to have a really good. From everybody I've talked on to council this time around, seems like it's starting out like they want to find a cohesion, a way to work together to get things done. So that's good. Now we can get
It
all our
is.
MLAs on board and everybody working in the same direction as a city. We can hopefully really do some big things over the next few years.
Absolutely. That's true.
Well, I know you're a busy guy, Ryan. You got all kinds of stuff going on. I want to thank you for working on city council and all the stuff you've done over the years and going to continue to do and working with the councils to get things done. And thank you for taking some time to let our city know what's going on.
And thank you for having not only myself on, Rob, but the other members of council as well. I appreciate that you're doing this. That's great.
Yeah. So every Saturday morning, people can tune in 9 o'clock, 9 to 10, hear what's going on in our city, Life Radio, and we'll post them up as well. But I look forward to just sort of keeping this whole dialogue going. And by the time I'm finished, I'm hoping at the end of this 4 years, everybody knows who every councilor is and has a say in everything they're doing. So
Yeah.
that's the goal.
Sounds good to me.
All right. Thanks, Ryan. You have a great day.
Yeah, you too, Rob. Have a good weekend.
Great. Thanks, Ryan.
Hey, thank you, Rob.
Yeah. So that'll be on tomorrow morning around 9 o'clock.
Okay. Sounds
All right.
good. And enjoy the rest of your weekend there, my man.
You too. Take her easy.
Okay. Bye-bye.